to the Who Dat Nation. Welcome to the Dome Patrol podcast, your podcast for the New Orleans Saints here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and our New Orleans Saints have completed their Week 15 matchup against the Washington Commanders. Unfortunately, with a loss 20-19, and normally I would be upset by that, but I'm not. I'm actually pretty chill with this loss, mainly because it looked like the first half of this game, it looked like the Saints were about to get the worst beating they've received in a very long time. It was looking ugly offensively. We couldn't get anything going offensively in that first half. I think the Saints only had 2 first downs in the first half, maybe one. But I'm gonna give them 2, and that's being very generous. But even with that, I mean, come on, in the entire first half, to put it in perspective, Jaden Daniels, the quarterback for the Washington Commanders, he had 2 touchdown passes in the first half. We only had 2 first downs. He only had 2 incompletions in the first half. We only had 2 first downs. That's saying a lot about how the first half of this game looked this Sunday against the Washington Commanders. But in the second half, there was a switch. And for the first time this season, I can clearly say the Saints made adjustments. And one major one, we know going into this game, we didn't have the services of Derek Carr. Jake Hader got the nod, started. A lot of people were all clamoring for Jake Hader, just like a lot of people was clamoring for Spencer Rattler a few weeks back when Derek Carr went down. But this go around, people were clamoring for different reasons. People were clamoring because they felt that he was the better quarterback all along, which I have never heard. I've heard as early as today, before the game started, from somebody I know that, they should have started Jake Hader before. Why? Why? What did Jake Hader show you that displayed that, okay, he's the guy? Or a better quarterback than Spencer Rattler. I'm not going to compare him to any other quarterbacks other than who's on the team currently. Out of the 2 quarterbacks, I still say Spencer Rattler was the guy. I said that today, not knowing what was going to happen in this game. But Spencer Rattler eventually did come in the second half after Jake Hader was benched. And Jake Hader, God bless him. And I like Jake Hader. Let me put that out there. I don't want it to come off like he's in the same atmosphere as Derek Carr on my hate list. No, I actually like Jake Hader. I just like Spencer Rattler better. I think Spencer Rattler brings a different dimension. But when it comes to Jake Hader, today just wasn't the day. I don't know if it was nerves, this being his first start, in the NFL. It just seemed he just wasn't ready today. It just wasn't there, man. I mean, some of those plays were just super boneheaded and just uncorrectable at points. Dropping back. His dropbacks were like 7 to 10 to almost 12 yards. I'm like, why are you dropping back so far? And if you are going to have a long drop back like that, you have to step up in the pocket, man. The offensive line is that's their job, to push the defensive lineman back as far as they can so you can step up and have a larger pocket. But he wasn't doing that. And it was time after time after time. And it was like, oh, my God. And then that bone-headed interception he threw. Throw it out of bounds. It was absolutely nothing open down the field. Absolutely nothing open. And you picked the smallest player to try to throw up a 50-50 ball to Alvin Kamara. That wasn't going to work. And sure enough, it got picked off. But I still like Spencer. I still like Jake Hader. I like him better as a backup. you know, as it stands right now. Now, what I was telling a friend of mine after the game, the problems I had with Jake Hader today are correctable mistakes that he made. You know, they can be coached out of you. Like I was mentioning, the drop back stuff that can be coached out of you. 3 steps, pow. 5 steps, pow. You know, get the ball out quicker. You know, reading the defense, seeing that the blitz coming, the ball got to come out quick. Uh, Not taking risky throws like that. If the play breaks down, throw it away or take the sack. One of the two. Don't throw the ball up in the air like that. He panicked, you know, and that's why I say this game, I think I'm going to chalk it up to nerves. It was really nerves because I've seen this dude play 10 times better than this. So I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Like, I'm done with Jake Hader. Get rid of him. No, I'm not your typical Saints fan. You know, I believe in second, third, fourth chances if need be. And so let's pump the brakes on the hate of Hader. He just had a bad game today. But the Saints adjusted throughout the game, and they made, well, not throughout the game, at halftime. They made the switch to Spencer Rattler, which gave life to the New Orleans Saints offense because the offense was doing nothing, absolutely nothing in that first half. And he mounted a comeback of all comebacks, honestly. That really gave you hope. It got me emotionally invested because I was telling myself at halftime, if it wasn't for this show, I wasn't gonna watch the rest of that game. I had checked out emotion. I had checked completely out. And when they made the switch, I was like, okay, let me start paying attention. And sure enough, the offense looked much better under Spencer Rattler. Unfortunately, wasn't quite enough. Rattler did connect with tight end Foster Monroe for a 1 yard touchdown as time expired, making the score 20-19. Yeah, we could have kicked the extra point, winning overtime. Yeah, of course. You know, hindsight is 2020. But when they went for the two, I was all in, and I still stand by that decision. I'm not mad at that decision at all. I didn't too much care for the play that they ran, but I respect and honor and completely support the decision to go for 2 points at that moment. You're 5-8. I mean, you're 5-8. You're on the outside looking in. You got an interim head coach. You're down to your third quarterback. Players were dropping like flies throughout the game. Who cares? Let's win this game. Let's win this game. And they went for it. Unfortunately, they fell short. The loss drops the Saints to 5-9. They're 3-2 under interim head coach Darren Rizzi. The Washington Redskins, on the other hand, they improved to 9-5. You know, good on them. Jake Hader, who got the start today in place of Derek Carr, he had a rough one. As I said, he completed 4 of 10 passes for 49 yards and an interception, and was shut out in the first half. I think it was 14-0 at halftime. He was shut out. Now, when Rattler came in, you know, he immediately led the Saints to a scoring drive to start the second half, although he didn't throw the touchdown pass. You know, that honor went to Cedric Wilson Jr., but it was a cool play design. I like that play to Alvin Kamara, and unfortunately on that play, Alvin Kamara got hurt, but he did make that one-handed grab before the touchdown, but he injured his groin in the effort. It was the second touchdown pass that Cedric Wilson had thrown in his career, and it was notable for Alvin Kamara as well. Kamara, he has 60 rushing touchdowns and 25 receiving touchdowns. He's the 4th player in NFL history with 50-plus rushing touchdowns and 25-plus receiving touchdowns. He's joined by Hall of Famers Lenny Moore and Marshall Faulk and Christian McCaffrey, the only 4 players to ever achieve that honor. Kamara did leave the game, like I said, with that groin injury. hoping he will be all right going forward. Saints defense today. Saints defense today. It is. How can I describe it, man? It's you look at the 20 points that Washington put on the Saints, and you kind of think that okay, they kind of did what they wanted to do, and it could have been worse because Jaden Daniels missed his receivers twice, wide open receivers. They could have walked in for touchdowns twice. Uh, thank God that they missed them. But aside from that, honestly, aside from that, the defense played an exceptional game. And now Jaden Daniels have some phenomenal numbers, and we're going to go over the numbers in a few minutes. But he looked amazing. He looked really good today. Uh, he is clearly the rookie of the year. I'm in that camp now. I'm sold. You know, the dude is he's the real deal. He looks good in that offense, orchestrating that offense. Uh, hey man, Washington is going to be a problem for a long, long time. But I would say the Saints defense were a problem for him. He was sacked today 8 times. 8 times by this defensive line. and I think Chase Young, who I forgot to mention this in the preview episode of the Dome Patrol, Chase Young playing the team that drafted him. You know, that was another attribute of emotion going into this game. He had 2 of those sacks. You had Cam Jordan had a sack, or did he have 2? We'll go over it with the stats, but I mean, they were all over the place. Carl Granderson had sack. Yeah. Cam Jordan had 2. So Cam Jordan and Chase Young both had 2 sacks. Carl Granderson had a sack. Willie Gay had a sack. Mario Davis, Hugo Imani had a sack. It was they were coming for him, man, and he did not get loose like talking about it. And this high potent run offense that Washington has was pretty much kept in check today. I was really impressed with this defense. I mean, if you really want to look at it, the Saints are ranked pretty low. I think they're the 30th ranked defense. And if you go back, if you track it since the departure of Dennis Allen, where we were at 32, dead last, we've moved up to 30 now. And this is an improvement week to week. That defense is getting better and better as far as getting to the quarterback. And I got to tip my hat to him. Good job by Joe Woods, our defensive coordinator. I guess Dennis Allen had the handcuffs on him. That's the only thing I can think of because this is a new style of defense. You know, you see more stunts, you see more blitzes. You know, they're more aggressive. Now, the back end is suffering a bit, but you also have to take into account there's a lot of injuries on that back end, but we're not here to make excuses. And so it is looking much better under this I hate to say new regime, but it feels like a new regime. Let's be honest. If Washington jumps on the Saints 14-0 under Dennis Allen, the end of the game probably would have been 28-35-0, something like that. You know, it wouldn't have changed because Dennis Allen doesn't adjust. He doesn't know how to respond to getting punched in the mouth. And I hate to kick a man when he's down, but let's be real. But under this new regime, under Darren Rizzi, these guys came out in that second half and played great. They really did. They fought their behinds off, and that's all I can ask for from this team at this point. That's all I can ask for, and actually have a puncher's chance of winning the game. They were there. They were there. They were right there, and they gave it their all. I can't get mad at this game. Honestly, I am so proud of these guys for fighting back against all odds because at one point it looked like the Saints were about to get steamrolled by the Washington Commanders, and we were literally one pass defense away from beating them. You know, but Saints will have an extra day to prepare because the Saints we'll have to travel to Lambeau Field next week on Monday Night Football to play the Green Bay Packers. This is going to be, ooh boy, I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to mold this over for the next week and see how that game turns out. But as it stands right now, the New Orleans Saints are 5-9 on the season. They're not mathematically out of it yet. At the time of this recording, I see Tampa Bay is losing big, so that's still open. Atlanta plays on Monday night, so we'll see how that go. I think they play the Raiders, I think. And I would imagine they beat the Raiders. But either way, the Saints are still within reach. Still within reach of having a chance. If you're still in that camp of the Saints might pull off a miracle. But it is what it is. Let's go over the stats for today's game against the Washington Commanders. Starting with passing, the Washington Commanders' leading passer today was Jaden Daniels. He was 25 of 31, 226 yards passing, and 2 touchdowns. He was sacked 8 times, as I mentioned before. For the New Orleans Saints, the leading passer today was Spencer Rattler. He was 10 for 21, 135 yards, and 1 touchdown. Jake Hader, he was 4 for 10 for 49 yards and an interception. And Cedric Wilson was 1 for 1 for 21 yards and a touchdown. That's a heck of a stat line for one throw. Leading rusher today for the Washington Commanders was Jaden Daniels. He had 11 carries for 66 yards. For the New Orleans Saints, it was Kendre Miller. Wouldn't you believe it? He had a heck of a game. He looked great out there, especially when Alvin Kamara went down. He was running the air out of that ball. I think he averaged 5 yards a pop in his carries. He was 9 for 46 yards today. Leading receiver for the Commanders was Terry McLaurin. 7 catches for 73 yards and 2 touchdowns. He is one of the best receivers in the league. He just had the unfortunate luck to play for the Washington Commanders and didn't have a quarterback for a while. He finally has one now, but he is a threat, and I seen it firsthand today. Like I said, it could have been worse because those 2 throws that they missed on was like a yard off. It hit his fingertips. He could have walked in for 2 more touchdowns today. Yeah, he was electric today. Leading receiver for the Saints today was Marquez Valdez-Scantling, 2 catches for 64 yards. Over on defense, the leading tackler for the Commanders was Jeremy Chang with 7 tackles. For the Saints, it was Demario Davis with 14 tackles today. Let's go over the team stats. Beginning with first downs, Washington had 23 first downs, Saints 17. Third down efficiency, Washington was 9 for 17 today. Boy, they were milking that Saints defense up, but it was a fight. They were fighting for those third downs. It wasn't easy. But the ones that was really killing me was the 3rd and 20s, the 3rd and 17s that they were converting. That was driving me up the wall. The Saints, on the other hand, they were 3 for 11 today. 4th down conversion. Both teams went for it once and converted. Total plays, Washington ran 74 total plays to the Saints 51. Total yardage, Commanders 326 yards to the Saints 245. Total drives, both teams had 9 drives apiece. Yards per play, Washington 4.4, Saints 4.8. Passing yardage, Washington 189 yards to the Saints 176. Rushing yardage, Washington 137 yards to the Saints 69. Red zone, Washington was 2 for 3 in the red zone. Saints were 1 for 2. Penalties today, Washington had 9 penalties for 84 yards. Saints 4 penalties for 36 yards. Saints or the have the long turnover today. That was the Jake Hader interception, and time of possession was won. I mean, won by the Washington Commanders. They held the ball for 40 minutes and 50 seconds to the Saints 19 minutes and 10 seconds. Crazy. Crazy. Let's go over the rankings for today's game against the Washington Commanders. In case this is your first time listening to the show, welcome to the show. This is how I break it down. I grade every unit of the New Orleans Saints in the game today. Offense, defense, special teams, coaching, round them all up and come up with an overall grade for the New Orleans Saints versus the Washington Commanders. Starting with offense gets a C plus today. They looked horrible in that first half. Absolutely horrible. I wouldn't even compare it to high school kids because I think high school offense could have went out there and mustered up 3 points today. I mean, it was horrible. Now, don't get me wrong. Washington has a top 10 defense. So that's not to be poo-pooed on. But, come on. You couldn't convert a first down in the first half. It was embarrassing to watch. Embarrassing. Second half, it was night and day. The second half was a vast improvement to this team. They moved the ball at will. They ran the ball down Washington's throat. Spencer Rattler came in, made all the big throws. It was just a different team. It looked like a complete different team that took the field in the second half. And all credit goes to Clint Kubiak. As much as I nail him to the cross, I'm going to have to take the nails out and take him off of the cross in that second half. He made the adjustments, called some phenomenal plays, especially in that final in that final drive at the end of the game. Some great play calling, except for that 2-point conversion. I didn't too much care for that play call, but it is what it is. Saints offense gets a C plus today. The defense gets a B minus. Defense, I mean, they held this team to 20 points. Now this is a Washington team. Last time they played a game, they threw a 40-something burger on the Tennessee Titans. They looked like a well-oiled machine, unstoppable. Saints, for the most part, did their part. They really controlled the run game. They contained Jaden Daniels as much as they could. I knew they weren't going to stop him, but they contained him enough. They got pressure. They got sacks. They were all over the field flying. The bugaboos was in that secondary. Some of those, I still have questions about that secondary and their communication. I don't understand how cornerbacks just let receivers run free up the field. And you can tell that the cornerbacks believe they have help over the top, but they never do. Our safeties are never where they're supposed to be. I don't know what the communication problem is there, but that needs to get fixed. I mean, on those two plays that I mentioned earlier that Jaden Daniels missed his receiver wide open, it was busted coverage. Busted coverage. I mean, wide open. The nearest Saint was maybe at best 7 yards behind him. Everything else was further away. It was the grace of God that they missed the ball. Yeah, they need to fix this communication problem. And this has been going on for years. This isn't something that just developed, but it was glaring today. It was embarrassing. But overall, the defense gets a B minus today. Special teams gets a B plus. Blake Groupie hit all his kicks. The punter had some really nice punts. He pinned them being the Washington Commanders inside the 5 a couple of times. But kickoff coverage, the coverage was bad in the kickoffs, whereas they refuse to kick it in the end zone and allowing the opposing team to get good field position is a questionable move by the Saints. And this only started after Rizzi took over as head coach. I don't know why this is. I mean, special teams, your bread and butter. I don't know why you decided to go with this move with the special teams, but that's not working. You allowing teams to have excellent field position to start a drive. You your defense is already suspect. Let's be real. Why would you put them in this position? I don't know, but special teams gets a B plus. Coaching today gets a B minus, and they get a big bump today because they did something that I hadn't seen them do in forever, and that's make an adjustment. They actually changed some things, made some moves, subtle moves to jolt this team to get back in this game and give this team a chance to win. There was some fight in them. There was a sense of urgency in them that was gone in the first half, I should say. And kudos to the coaching staff for getting this team up, to play in that second half. Wish they would have jumped on them a little sooner, it jumped on them and told them, like, look, man, we can win this game. Because I really, in that first half, I'm looking at Washington and I'm like, there are holes here where we can actually pull this off if we could. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. But coaching gets a B minus. Overall, after rounding up all those grades, the Saints' performance today against the Washington Commanders gets a grade of a C plus. I'm happy. This is probably the most happy I've ever been in a loss in a long time. I don't know how to feel about this. I don't know what tomorrow may bring. I may feel a little different. Anger may creep in. I don't know, but as it stands right now, I'm actually happy with this loss because this is a good loss. I know there's no moral victories in football, but this feels good that this team went up against a playoff team. This is a playoff team. If the playoffs started today, Washington is in the playoffs. You went up toe to toe, man to man, helmet to helmet against a playoff team, and you literally pushed them to the brink. After, if you listen to the statistics here, Saints had no reason being within a point of winning this game. Time of possession that is the most lopsided time of possession I have ever seen in an NFL football game. Saints didn't have the ball for 20 minutes in this game. That is crazy to me. And they almost won it with no time left on the clock. The time had ran out. They had one play to run. That just goes to show you how crazy football is. But it's all good. I'm happy. I am happy for Chase Young. I'm happy Chase Young was able to shine a little bit. I was happy for Cam Jordan to finally have an old Cam Jordan game. And I'm happy for Marshawn Lattimore, to be honest with you. Marshawn Lattimore shut down. He showed that he's still Marshawn Lattimore. He shut down a whole side of a field. Saints didn't even go at him. Whether it was Jake Hader or whether it was Spencer Rattler, neither of them looked his way. So they knew we're not even going to give him the opportunity. And I'm happy for him. I really am, though. He's one of those players that it's not oh man, I hope he does bad over there. I hope he's gonna regret this. Well, number one, it wasn't his decision. It was the team's decision to trade him. And so that's number one. And number two, I really don't think Marshawn Lattimore wanted to leave here. I think it was a team decision. And I support the decision. Because the Saints really do. I can give them a list of other players they can trade off whenever off season begins. But we need to rebuild this team. But starting with him is a good move, and we got some decent draft picks out of the deal. Hopefully, we don't mess them up. But yeah, I'm happy with this. I'm cool with this. Now, whatever happens going forward, as far as this season is concerned, and the division and playoffs. Look, I had already conceded to that weeks ago, and so I'm not in that. If it happens, if they manage to pull it off, I'm happy. If it doesn't happen, I'm cool. Like I said, I've conditioned myself that this is what it is. This is who the team is. So I'm cool with it. I just want them to fight to the end and not give up. And today it felt like they had gave up. It felt like they were packing it in. And then I don't know if Darren Rizzi went into the locker room at halftime and went to slapping fools across the head. Like, look, get your act together. We still got a whole half of football here. We gonna play. We gonna fight. And they went out there and they did in that second half. I'm truly, truly, truly grateful for the effort they put up in that second half. But that's my thoughts on the game. Once again, the New Orleans Saints fall just a tad bit short against the Washington Commanders, losing 20-19. Saints are down 5-9 on the season. Let's see how this goes. We're off to Wisconsin now. Let's take on these Green Bay Packers. Frozen Lambeau Field 2 days before Christmas. Can the Saints give us a Christmas present and beat the Green Bay Packers? This is going to be interesting. I can't wait for this game, to be honest with you. I just want effort. That's all I want, effort. Not looking for wins and losses. I just want effort. And so we shall see. I would like to know, what are your feelings after the Saints lost today? Are you disappointed, mad, ready to throw your TV to the curb and all this other stuff, I would love to know. Or are you all right with it? Are you in the camp that I'm in? You feel all right about this loss? I really feel all right with it. It's a weird feeling. It's foreign to me. I never felt like this before. I would like to know how you are currently feeling after this game. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for this show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, don't forget about YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the Dome Patrol podcast, your podcast for the New Orleans Saints here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this recap and reaction to the Saints loss to the Washington Commanders. Once again, 20-19. Oh, man, a bummer, but not really. Not really. But I will catch you this weekend when we preview Saints versus Packers, Monday Night Football, frozen tundra, Lambeau Field. How is this going to turn out? Can the Saints pull out a shocker here? This one is actually a question mark, but we'll dive into that when we preview that game later on this week. Until then, everybody, I'm going to be screaming to the top of my lungs, who dat?